Right here is the Exway Atlas Pro with tons of upgrades over the original carbon model. We got a bigger battery, bigger trucks, bigger motors, better ESC, different remote, the option to have an Aux Pack and gear drives. There's a lot of stuff available, so let's jump right into this first look. What's up, friends? Today, like I said, we will be looking at the Exway Atlas Pro, and this is continued coverage of the Exway products. There will be more in the future, and I'm pretty excited to look at this one. It's completely different than the Flex ER, which I took a look at. You can take a look at that in the iCard, but it's completely different. Got big all-terrain tires, double kingpin trucks, carbon deck, and gear drives. So before we get into the tech specs for this, let's go ahead and take a look at what you get in the box. First of all, you get their new 210 watts GAN or GAN charger, and this thing is pretty compact, quite small, easy to put in your bag, and it works quite well. Takes a couple hours to charge the board to full, but I will also be getting the 1000 watt charger in the mail sometime soon, and we'll get to test that out as well. Next, we got the remote, which is the Exway R3 remote with a couple more options and one downgrade that I'll talk about later. The case itself feels the same, so it's mostly just internal changes. You got some stickers to put on your board or wherever you want. You got a small tool kit which has all of the Torx wrenches that you need to disassemble your board, as well as a plastic pry tool which you can use to pop underneath the top plate if you need to take it off to service something. You also have your remote USB cable in here, some extra speed rings, and some extra washers. All good things to have, and good to see that included in the box. I do prefer the Torx standard, even though a lot of people don't have those tools by default, so nice of them to include them. Also included are the optional Mudguard Mounts. These screw onto little plates on the gear drives, and will give you the option to protect your legs from all that grime that comes off the drive wheels when you're in the dirt or in slightly wet conditions. So you got that one, and the other side along with the mounting hardware that goes along with it. You also get a whole second set of bushings, and these ones are the high rebounds barrel bushings, but they come in at slightly lower drawler. These are 90A versus the 95. Yes, the 95A low rebounds fat bushings that come on here by default. And I stood on the board briefly, and they do feel quite stable. So we're gonna see how that does when we start riding, but good that they include more bushings, give you a little bit of adjustability. You also get this really nice shiny handle, and I personally don't usually like handles on skateboards. I think they look a little bit silly, but this one is like black chrome, and it looks really nice. Seems well built. It's 2 pieces, so I don't know, I might consider putting it on, but nice that they include it in the box, and definitely looks better than some of the other ones I've seen. That's about all you get in there. You get your quick start guide and your manual. The manual comes in several different languages, as you would expect, and it basically just goes into the details of turning the board on, and then all the different functions for the remote. So we'll go into that a bit later when we get into the full review. You also get one final thing, or 2, I guess. Exway marketing pamphlet, which I guess is cool. Cool pictures in there and stuff, and a bracelet. So That's all for the accessories and what's in the box. So let's jump into the tech specs. Before we turn the board up on its side to see the underside, let's talk about some of the things that we can see right off the top. The first thing you'll notice on this board is that it is a carbon unibody deck. And this deck has the battery built into it and has a large lid that screws down with a bunch of torque screws on top. This lid has all the grip tape mounted onto it with an additional lip of grip tape around the outside. And the concave on this deck seems pretty nice. I stood on it very briefly. It's a nice mild concave, a little bit less aggressive than the Flex ER. And I think I'm really going to like this deck. However, I don't normally ride completely rigid carbon decks, so this might not be as comfortable as what I'm used to. But we'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic and open to trying it. The next thing you'll notice is the trucks. These are Exway's 10.5-inch forged and CNC finished trucks. And these are double kingpin variants with those low rebounds 95A bushings. And the bushings in here, I'm interested to see if they're going to be better than the ones on the Flex ER or if they're going to be the same or worse. Definitely a very different setup going from RKP trucks to DKPs. Next up, you've got Exway's 175mm off-road knobby tires, along with their quick disconnect CNC metal wheels. These are pretty unique. There's not many companies that are using a style where you're able to completely change the tire without taking the wheel off of the axle. It's actually a toolless change. You can probably, well, it's easier if you have needle-nose pliers, but anyway, decent looking CNC wheels. We'll see how easy it is to change a tire when we do the full review. And that's pretty much all for the front here. Let's flip it up on its side and we'll talk about the drivetrain and a little bit more. All right, I've got the board flipped up on its side now so we can see the undercarriage, and this thing is super clean. There's almost nothing on the bottom here, just a little bit of logos, and then your 2 heatsink plates for the optional 4-wheel drive. Now, I'm not sure if you can upgrade to 4-wheel drive later by replacing the front plate. I think you can, which is neat. But anyway, the metal plates are there no matter if you have the 2-wheel drive or 4. In the back here, you have your ESC heatsink and you have your power button, which you won't need to use very often because of smart turn on, but you'll need to turn it on there for the first time you use it. You got your motor cables with their large connectors that go straight into the motors, and you've got some nice little connector holders here that connect to the truck and also serve as kind of an anti-sink plate on the underside of the deck. And then you've got your double kingpin here, and on this way we've got the gear drive. Now this gear drive is a I believe steel on steel. I'll put it on the screen, but I believe it's steel on steel, and then the ratio is going to be 1 to 4.75, aka 12 tooth on the motor and 57 tooth on the wheel gear. That's a pretty good ratio, so I'm expecting the torque from this thing to be quite decent. Powering this baby, we've got 2 motors. These are 6370 motors, and I don't see any kV markings on them, but if I had to guess, it's got to be somewhere between 170 and 190 kV. But yeah, we'll see how the power goes. And personally, I think the looks of this drivetrain are decent. I think the motor cages are a little bit bloated. There's a little bit of extra stuff going on here. It's definitely not the worst gear drive that I've seen, and it looks like it'll do the job. Time will tell if it is actually good, but you know, part of testing the board. So next up, the actual ESC itself is their 3rd generation ESC. Not sure what that means exactly, but it's supposed to be more powerful than the Flex ER by quite a bit, more powerful than the old Atlas by quite a bit, and I'm excited to try this out. And we'll get that acceleration number onto our testing data, and we'll be able to compare directly to the other things that I test. Inside, we have a 12S 4P battery, which uses what I believe are Lishen 2170 LA cells. I think it used to use the 40T, but now it uses the Lishen ones. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll look it up and make sure I put it on screen if it's different than that. Those Lishen cells are pretty good. They're rated pretty well by Battery Mooch, and I actually bought several of those on the Black Friday sale for 18650 Battery Store to build some packs for my friends and for myself. I think that pretty much covers all of the board, and hopefully you enjoyed some of the nice B-roll in there. And I think it's time to take this baby out and go for our first ride. One other thing that I want to mention, is I just noticed it here, is there are these little plates on the gear drive. I believe these are grease-filled ports. You can also screw onto here with the Mudguard Mounts to get that additional protection, but I think you can also fill grease through here, and we're going to check that out later. But anyway, let's go ahead and get on to our first ride.